بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. So the last point we were mentioning is that a person must accept the holy words without any hesitation, meaning the Holy Quran and the words of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salatu wasalam. Why should we accept it without any hesitation? Because the intellect proves to us that a person must follow the Quran and the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. So once they tell us something, we have to follow. This rule in itself helps a person understand the fiqh, the jurisprudence. Why? Because there are a lot of commands in fiqh, a lot of awamir, Allah tells you do this or do that. And there are a lot of nawahi, meaning a lot of commands where Allah forbids you to do something. And we don't really know what is the main reason behind it. What is the illah, the main cause behind this command of God subhanahu wa ta'ala. But when we know this is a command from Allah, it has come to us through the Quran, which is the book of God, or the infallibles who are the infallibles of God, meaning the proofs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then we know that we have to follow. The holy words, the Quran or the ahadith, at times they will affirm an idea that the intellect leads to. In other words, you know about something, but the Quran is just there to back up that idea, to back up the intellect. Or the narrations of Ahlul Bayt, they're there to support that idea and remind you of it, as we said. Allah stresses a lot on the fact of dhikra, tadakkur, reminding or remembering what you already know. And we're in deep need of remembering. So an example of this, of these ideas that we already know, or we have the capability of knowing without the script, is the existence of God. The Quran keeps on reminding you that Allah exists. But you can know that He exists without the Quran, with your intellect on its own. So it affirms that idea. Another example is the infallibility of prophets. The Quran, inshallah, when we do a workshop about Nubuwwah, bi'idhnillah, we'll see how the Quran constantly mentions al-asma, the infallibility of prophets, of Ahlul Bayt, alayhi salam. You can know their infallibility. You can know the infallibility of the prophets or the Imams with your intellect. But it affirms the idea. Now, can you give me an example of something, another example, of an idea that the Quran affirms or the Ahadith affirm, that you already know of? In other words, you have the capability of knowing that idea through your intellect on its own. Yes?
It's not an example, but I have a question.
Mm-hmm. Just remember to press on. بسي شوية until نشوفها.
It's a question about proving the existence of God to an atheist. Do you tell them just to use their intellect, or is that just what you tell them?
We're going to tell them first use your fitra. They're going to most likely neglect the fitra, so we're going to go to intellect. Yeah.
So the reason why they're atheist is because they neglect the human nature.
That could be the reason, or no. It could be because they have a problem with God. There are various reasons why a person will be atheist. Some have a problem with God's justice. Some have a problem with restricting their lives, because when they believe in a God, then they're going to have to obey that God. And they don't want to restrict themselves. They don't want to restrict themselves to wajibat and muharramat, obligations and forbidden acts. So they say there's no God, so they can stay free. For that reason, as long as a person believes in a God subhanahu wa ta'ala, you can always restrict him or her to some extent. But when a person disbelieves in a God, then there's nothing that could stop him. Nothing at all. Because khalas, he doesn't care about anything. So he'll commit the most hideous deeds because he has neglected Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and so he has neglected heaven, hell, and the day of judgment. Okay? طيب. Give me an example of something that the Quran affirms, an idea that you already know of, or you can know of without the Quran. but it comes forward and affirms it. Day of Judgment? Yes. The aql, the intellect, has the ability to know that there must be a day where Allah Ta'ala judges between the people, where He takes the right from the oppressor and gives it to the oppressed. Because we see oppression in this world. And we see oppressors who die without getting punished for what they've done. And we see people who are oppressed, they also die and they never get their rights. So the intellect knows there has to be a day where Allah Ta'ala will take the right from the oppressor and give it back to the oppressed. That is what we can know with our intellect. The Quran comes and tells us, yes, there is a day of judgment, there is a day of resurrection, but it gives us even more details that we don't know of. Details that we don't have the ability of knowing without the Quran. And that's where we move on to the second holy words, the second type of holy words, second type of verses or ahadith. Those are the verses or ahadith that inform of a belief, a practice, or another idea that the intellect cannot lead to. The intellect cannot be led to such an idea. As an example, believing in the stages of the afterlife. The hadith, the Quran, told us that there are several stages. There's a stage called Sakarat al-Maut, where a person is on the brink of dying and his soul is being extracted by an angel called Azrael, Malak al-Maut. Then there's a stage of Barzakh in your grave. Then there's a stage of Ba'ath, of resurrection. And you see the people confused and they're running away from their own deeds, from their own fate. Then there's a stage of Mizan, a scale, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala weighs the deeds of people, right? Then there's a stage of Sirat, a bridge that we're going to have to cross, and that bridge will be placed over Jahannam, over hellfire. These details cannot be known through the intellect on its own. You need scripts. As we said, the intellect knows there could be a day, there has to be a day where God judges between people. But it doesn't have the ability to know the details of that day. Who will tell us the details? The Quran and the Ahlul Bayt. That's an example. Another example is the obligation to circumambulate around the Kaaba 7 times. It's a hukm. It's a fiqh hukm. Most fiqh ahkam, most rulings of jurisprudence, they fall under this category. Where your intellect doesn't have the capacity to know that this should be wajib, mandatory, or this should be haram, forbidden, or that should be mustahab, recommended, or this should be disliked, or this should be mubah, permissible. It doesn't know. This is why we say that in fiqh, we're not supposed to use our intellect to determine what's wajib and what's haram. In other words, I can't just sit down between me and myself and start thinking, you know what, Hajj should be wajib twice per lifetime. Says who? Why not 5 times per lifetime? Why not once? Why not say it's not wajib to do Hajj at all? My intellect cannot tell me that if a person steals, you have to cut his hand, or you have to imprison him, or you have to kill him. It doesn't have the power to determine what's actually right at that point. Allah will tell you. What's right is to do the following, if the following conditions apply. Right or wrong? In Hajj, Allah wants us to do what? To do tawaf around the Kaaba 7 times. Why not 70? Why not once? Allahu Alam, there's a reason for sure. But the intellect doesn't have the ability to know why and to know that this is wajib in itself. You need the script. The script will come and help you. Now give me another example, if you can, about a belief or a practice or an idea that your intellect cannot lead you to, but the Quran and the narrations will. There are plenty of examples, and you know them. You know them for sure. Yes.
How many Imams there should or shouldn't be?
Ahsan. How many Imams should we have? The intellect doesn't know. The intellect tells you, yes, there has to be an Imam after Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Imamate is there. There has to be a person or a group of people who are Imams, like Ali, Hassan, Hussain, who were living at the same time, salamullahi alayhim. Not a problem. But what is their number? How do I know? They could be 50, they could be 100, they could be 1. The narration told us 12, not 11 and not 13. Another example. Yes. How we pray?
How many prophets in the Quran?
How many prophets did Allah send? Very good. Yes, sister.
Yeah, I was going to say why we pray 5 times a day, not 6 or 4 times.
Santo. Why pray 5 times? Why not 60 times? Why not once? Why 5 times per day at specific times? Right? Another example. Ba'd. Khums. Very good. Can you elaborate on that? Mm-hmm. We wouldn't know that we should pay 20%, right? Maybe we might come to a point where we say, yes, you should pay charity towards the poor, but we won't know how much. Is it 20%? Is it 50%? Is it 10%? Allah determines 20%. Jayyid? So there are plenty of examples. Another example is al-raj'ah, believing in the return, meaning people who are resurrected in this world when Sahib al-Zaman, may Allah hasten his reappears. How will you know that? There's no way you can know it without the script of Al-Baqarah. Jayyid. Now, I promised you to mention a narration concerning fitrah and how fitrah is used to determine the presence of God, human nature. That is the first proof that there is a God in existence. Although some might neglect the fitrah, and so we're going to go to what? To logic, to intellect. And from there we're going to prove the existence of God Azza wa Jalla. A man comes to Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam, and he asks him for guidance, as he said, O son of Allah's messenger, guide me to Allah and tell me who He is. The arguers have argued much with me and they've confused me. Before we continue with the narration, realize this person, it appears he has indulged in debates with people who argue, and they have some sort of talent when it comes to arguing and debating, and so he has become confused. The first lesson we derive from the narration is that we shouldn't put ourselves in the wrong position. If you don't have enough background, enough knowledge concerning your beliefs, then don't just go and start debating with anyone, because some people are talented, even if they're not Muslim or they're atheist. They're talented, they know how to debate, and they might confuse you. So not everyone is eligible to debate. Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam tells Hisham bin Hakam, he says, مِثْلُكَ فَلْيُكَلِّمِ النَّاسِ. The likes of Hisham, they had the power to debate with people and to defeat them. And they had enough knowledge to do so because they were spoon-fed by the Imam alayhi salam. Spoon-fed with knowledge, of course. So the Imam tells him, O slave of Allah, have you ever embarked on a ship? The man says, yes, I've embarked. Now today you could say, have you ever embarked on a plane, right? It's not a problem. It's just an example that the Imam is using. Imam al-Sadiq says, have you went through a stage where your ship was damaged and you were on the brink of drowning, a stage where no ship can save you and swimming won't benefit you? So even if you swim, even if you're the best swimmer, you're the best lifeguard, you know you're going to drown. No ship can come to your rescue. Have you been through such a stage? The person said yes. Now, suppose that you're on an airplane and the pilot dies. All pilots on the airplane die. And you know the plane's about to crash. 5 minutes left. These are the last 5 moments of your life, God forbid. What's going to happen to the people on the airplane? Let's see. The man says yes. The Imam says, at that point, did your heart, meaning the spiritual heart, not the physical one, the soul in other words, did your heart get attached to a being, something in existence, that is able to save you from your predicament, from your problem, from your tragedy? The man said yes. The Imam says, that being, meaning that thing in existence, is Allah. The one who is able to save you when no one is there to save you. The one able to come to your rescue when no one is there to rescue you. No one is there, but Allah is there. Now who tells you that Allah is there? How do you know? Did you think about it? No. The Imam said, did your heart get attached? The soul by itself got attached to that one being that could save it. How come? Because of human fitrah, of human nature. We've been programmed in a way where we know Allah Ta'ala is there. But sometimes we might forget about the fitrah, the human nature. When does the human nature pop up? When does it show itself? When does it manifest itself? When a person is in deep danger. At that point, the biggest disbeliever will become the greatest believer. At that point, when the airplane is about to crash, trust me, most of the people on the plane, if not all, they'll be screaming for a God they know. But they did not think about that God. They were attached to Allah Azza wa Jal through their spirit, through their soul. Why? Because they're programmed. So you cannot hide the fitrah of Allah. In Surah Al-Rum, Allah mentions, لا تبديل لخلق الله. You cannot change the creation of God. You cannot change it. The fitrah is there. You can neglect it. You can hide it. You know why a kafir is called a kafir? Anyone know what kufr actually means, literally? Kufr means to conceal. Literally, it means to conceal. Initially, the person called kafir in Arabic is the person who cultivates. He works with the land. Why? Because he hides the seed in the earth. So the kafir, the disbeliever, was called kafir. Why? Because he conceals his fitrah. He hides it. But it's there. He cannot change it. That's the first proof. Yes, sister.
What was that ayah in Surah Al-Rum that you said?
لا تبديل لخلق الله. لا تبديل لخلق الله. Verse 30. فأقم وجهك للدين حنيفا فطرة الله التي فطر الناس عليها لا تبديل لخلق الله ذلك الدين القيم. Right? Verse 30 of Surah Al-Rum. Allah mentions the fitrah, the human nature. He says, لا تبديل لخلق الله. You can't change the creation of Allah. You're programmed to do what? To know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even if you neglect Him, you know Him. Now, one could say you're just claiming that there is a God and that we know about Him. And so here we bring him to what? To using his intellect. To prove the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to prove that He exists. And by the way, even the believers in a God, they differ. Some said there are 2 gods. Some said there are 3. Some said there are, mashallah, thousands or hundreds. But we tell them, we say human nature, human fitrah goes against you. Why? Because realize, inshallah you don't go through danger in your life, but if you go, realize that when you're on the brink of dying, God forbid, or drowning, your heart attaches itself to how many gods? To one. So if the gods were multiple, if there were multiple gods, why doesn't the fitrah attach itself to many? Why not? Why only to one? So fitrah is also used to prove that there's only one God in existence. Nonetheless, yes.
I'm just going to elaborate on that. My work was just fascinating in high school.
Mm-hmm.
We were learning about Hinduism, and they taught us that they have multiple gods,
Mm-hmm.
and each god has a specific attribute that they're known for.
Mm-hmm.
But there's one god who is above all those other gods, and that's the god that they look up to, or the god that they go to in their like you said, like that's the
Mhm, mhm.
that's the God that they all belong to that God.
Right. Very nice. And so realize how human fitrah leads to one God. There's always one supreme God responsible of the other gods, even for polytheists, which means there's only one God. Because if you have sub-gods, right? If you have gods that are being directed and managed by another one, it means that other one is the real God, because he's stronger. And then God cannot be weak, or weaker than something else. Jayyid. What does the Quran say about his existence? The Quran says, قالت لهم رسلهم أفي الله شك فاطر السماوات والأرض. The messenger said. Realize when Allah says the messenger said, it means multiple messengers have said this, because their message is one. No messenger of God said believe in multiple gods. Even Isa himself, if you read the Bible today, Isa himself, the shaitan tried to deviate Isa when he was young. That's what the Bible says. And so he tells him, worship me. Isa replies that I don't worship anyone but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We cannot worship anyone but God. So all of the messengers call to the worshipping of one God. Why did I bring this verse? The messengers are saying, Afillahi shak. Is there any doubt in Allah when He is the creator, Fatir as-samawati wal-ard, the creator of the universe, the sky? He's the creator of the skies and the earth. Now realize the word Afillahi shak. Some will tell you, you can believe, you can be a believer, but you need a leap of faith to be a believer. In other words, there's always that 1% or 5% chance that we're wrong, that there are no God, there isn't any God, there are no gods in existence, that atheism is right. The Quran replies to this idea. It says, Afillahi shak. What are you talking about? No. You can come to the point where you know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is there. You know, you're certain, and you don't have a shadow of a doubt that He exists. The important thing is to get to that point. As we said last week, if you remember, we get to the point of yaqeen, the point of certainty. So is there any doubt about Allah, the creator of the skies and the earth? Why mention Fatir as-samawati wal-ard? Let's look at the word fatara. What does the word fatara actually mean? Anyone know? The literal meaning of fatara? The root meaning? Pardon me? Not mansah. To break? Very close. To split. Fatara is to split. He split. To split something open. So the word fatara was used for what? For creating. Why? As if, as Allama Tabatabai says, may Allah bless his soul, everything other than Allah, other than God, was in a bag of inexistence. So in this bag, in this circle over here, you have everything other than God subhanahu wa ta'ala. We're speaking, of course, metaphorically. Yeah? They're non-existent. What did Allah do? He split the bag open. And what happened? And everything came out. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Fatir as-samawat al-ard because He brought you from nothing. You were nothing, and I was nothing. He brought us out into existence. Of course, at the beginning He created the Ahl al-Bayt alayhim salam. Then after a while He created everything else. Azza wa Jal. So the prophets are saying, how could you doubt in God when you have the skies and the earth to prove His existence? But how does the sky and the earth actually prove the existence of God Azza wa Jal? How? Can someone tell me? Can someone summarize for me how we can use the skies and the earth as a proof of His existence? Before we start with the philosophical proof called the cosmological proof. Let's see. To understand what the prophets are saying, alayhim salam, The prophets are the deepest people on earth with their intellect, to be honest. And the Imams, of course, the Imams are deeper. And Muhammad, in other words. To understand their words, we have to understand the three types of existence. Al-wujud. Al-wujud, existence, can be divided into three categories through our intellect. Existence is either necessary, wajib, meaning something has to exist. And if it doesn't, everything in existence cannot exist. Okay? That's one. Two, a possible existence, meaning something that can exist and also can remain in existence. It's not a problem. Okay? Inshallah, you're going to give me examples of those. Three, impossible existence. Something that cannot take place. If it existed, then that means we shouldn't exist. Because it makes no sense for that thing to exist. Okay? That thing cannot take place. Impossible. So, what is a good example, or the only example, of a necessary being? Of a being from the necessary existence category? Allah, that's it. Okay? It's not hard. For the first one, Allah. God, in other words. Okay? If you want to call it, as they say in Star Wars, the Force. Okay? Just the Force, that's it. Jayyid. Names don't mean much at the moment. Because a disbeliever or a non-Muslim might tell you, you call him Allah. Who says he's Allah? We'll tell him, okay, suppose he's named something else. Forget the name Allah for now. What do you want to call him? God? The ultimate energy? The force? Call him something. It's not a problem. Necessary existence, as the philosophers do. Go ahead. Let's see if there is a wajib wujud or not. If we prove that there is a being from the necessary existence category, it means we've proven the existence of a God. Simple? What about possible existence? What can be a good example of a possible being? Yes, sister. Humans, animals, because humans exist, animals exist, right? But if they didn't, would that be a problem? No. Because there was a time where there were no humans. هل أتى على الإنسان حين من الدهر لم يكن شيئا مذكورا. Surah Al-Insan, it says there has been a time where humans did not exist. Okay, Surah Al-Insan. Or Allah says to Zakaria, خلقتك من قبل ولم تك شيئا. Zakaria, I've created you before you existed. I've created you. And you were nothing. Absolutely nothing. So there was a point where humans did not exist. Give me another example. 5 examples of possible existence. What is it? Kawakib, planets. Good. So we have the planets, the trees. We said humans, animals. Would insects work? Yeah. Insects. What is it? بس خلوا صوتكم شوي. More examples. How about a galaxy? A star? A black hole? طيب. Let's think of something that does not exist, but is a possible existent. What is it?
Zombies can be possible.
Can they or can they not be? Dinosaurs? They don't exist right now, but they used to. Dinosaurs. But what about zombies? Is it possible to have a zombie? It's possible. Yes, it might not be in existence, but it can exist. What's a zombie? It's a person who has been resurrected. One day we will be zombies when Allah Ta'ala resurrects us on the Day of Judgment. Bah! You had an answer, Mushtarah? Go ahead. Another example. Let's think of something that does not exist but can exist. Unicorns. Jayyid?
Aliens.
Aliens. Bravo. Bob. Centaur. Half human, half horse. Cyclops. All these imaginary figures that you see in movies, they're possible. If Allah wanted, He could create them. And if they existed, there wouldn't be a problem. But they might not be in existence. Ever watched Dragon Ball Z? Yes? The dragon there is a possible being. There are no dragons like that in our present world. But if Allah wanted, He can create it. It's not impossible for God, right or wrong. He can do it. Now let's understand what's an impossible being. Yes?
I'm grandfather to my own father.
Ahsan. Jazakallah khair. So an impossible being from the impossible existence category is I am what?
I'm the grandfather to my own father.
Son. So I am my own grandfather. Right? I am my grandpa. Why is it impossible? What is it? Why not? What's so impossible about it?
Like, you can't be your own grandfather because you can't create yourself.
You can't create yourself. Bravo. Bravo. But, Narjis?
It's possible to go back in time
Uh-huh.
and then somehow something happens and you just stay there and then I don't know, something happens
Okay.
and somehow you're a different person.
Hela, can we go back in time or not? We have to debate about that. But even then, it's still impossible. ليش؟ غدير.
نحن اللي ما فينا نكون our own grandpa. Like so نحن اللي impossible to be that. But God was able to do that. But نحن we're impossible to do that.
It's impossible for us. شايف؟ جيد. Yes.
It's impossible because He's the one that brought you to this world, basically.
Ahsan. And last but not least, if you are your own grandpa, it means you exist before existing. Keep that in mind. I'm my own grandpa. جيد. It means I exist and I don't exist at the same time. ليش? Because when I'm saying Ali is the son of Musa, right? But then that same Ali was the father of Musa. It means Ali over here, he's existing and not existing. ليش؟ إنه he's there. He's supposed to be born in, 1990, but he's also born in 1950. So he exists and he doesn't exist at the same time. That's what we call in Arabic tanaqud. There's a contradiction, a clear contradiction that the intellect will not accept. So you cannot exist and not exist at the same time. You can exist in 1950 and not exist in 1940. Not a problem. Two different times. So we say, yes, you can be a grandpa and a grandson at the same time, but you can't be the same grandpa and grandson. مثلا, Ali is the son of Musa. He's the grandson of, suppose, Ja'far. But he's also the grandpa of who? Let's say he has a son called Muhammad, and Muhammad has a son called Ali. So Ali, I'm going to use different names so I don't confuse you. He has a son called Hadi. So Ali is the grandpa of Hadi, but the grandson of Ja'far. ما في إشكال. No problem whatsoever. That's how life works. But you can't be your own grandpa. How about your own father? Why not? Same thing, right? You exist before existing. جيد. Let's look at another example of an impossible being. Can you think of another example? Yes.
Another God?
Pardon me?
Another God?
Another God. Another God. To have two gods in existence, that's impossible. And we're going to see, we're going to prove that inshallah. Impossible to have two gods. There can only be one. How? Inshallah, we'll talk about it. But anything existing before God? Jayyid. That's good. Putting the earth inside of an egg without changing the size of the egg and without changing the size of the earth. That's impossible. ليش impossible? Because the egg cannot fit the earth. It's an egg. It's little, small. So putting something much bigger without changing one of their sizes, that's impossible. It cannot contain it, cannot withstand it. Okay? So if something is big or something is bigger, you can't put it in something smaller. You can't. Physically. We're talking physically here. Okay? Yes, if the size of the egg changed or the size of the earth also changed, then yeah, you could fit one or the other. It wouldn't be a problem. So if that's clear, we move on to understand, is there a wajib al-wujud? Is there a being from the necessary existence category or not? Right. Let's try to justify our existence, and we'll go through an elimination process. Okay? If we prove all the theories that justify our existence to be wrong, other than the one saying that there's a God, then we'll know that there has to be a God. In other words, today, several people will justify why or how we exist. Okay? Now what we're going to do is we're going to examine this justification. If we prove it to be wrong, if we prove all justifications to be wrong, then we're going to know the only one that could be right is the one saying there's a God. And that God created the rest of the universe. Or created the universe as a whole. So how do we prove our existence? Well, the first idea over here is that nothing created the universe. Nothing. What do we mean by nothing? We're saying we exist. Very nice. And there's nothing that created us. That's okay? Something that does not exist. It created us. Can that be? Can it? ليش? Why not?
Earlier we said there are some things that are common sense that exist to something they created. Something above it didn't create it.
Okay. Yes, Majid? Bravo. Very nice. We're saying nothing. Nothing is nothing. Right? It's absolutely zero. Non-existent. So how can it create something else when haram, it doesn't even exist? Check. An example. A human that does not exist created another human. How can this be? He doesn't even exist. He needs someone to create him. And you're telling me he's the one that created the rest? So that cannot happen. The next theory we propose. عندنا مشكلة يا أحمد. مش الحلقة. Something like us created the universe. Something like us. What we mean by like us is a possible being. Something from the possible existence category, like us. Okay? We're humans, we're possible. We said planets are possible, stars are possible, so on and so forth. So suppose someone tells me, yes, the being that created us is the planet called Saturn. There was a day, I'm not using this name just for no reason. There was a day, a time where people worshipped Saturn. Okay? There was a time where people worshipped the sun or the moon. In Ibrahim's time, sallallahu alayhi. So the question is, if he tells me Saturn created the rest of the universe, we're going to have to see, can that be accepted or not? That's why we say something like us created us. In other words, a possible being. Today, an atheist will tell you what? I have been made by my father and mother. Right or wrong? You tell them, Jayyid. Who made them? Well, their father and their mother. And who made them? We keep on going until we reach Adam and Eve, if you believe in a religion, or we reach the great ancestor that Darwin speaks about. Ultimately, we're going to get to some point. So where will this theory lead us? There's only two ways to explain this theory, and both are wrong. The first way is the circle theory. Dawr. How does this work? You go in a circle. It says the circle theory. Suppose that we have people who worship Saturn. So we tell them, Ya Ikhwan, how did Saturn create the rest of the creations? It says, okay, Saturn created Adam alayhi salam and Eve. We say, very nice. Who did Adam and Eve create? They say they created the rest of the humans. Very nice. And who did the rest of the humans create? They created Saturn. Makes absolutely no sense. Why? Because Saturn exists before existing. There's a contradiction there, a clear contradiction. Now, I'm using Saturn as an example. You can use other things. A pencil, a planet, a human being, the great ancestors, the monkeys, anything. Something that comes from the mumkin al-wujud category, the possible existence. So Dawr is batil, it's void. Do I need to explain why it's void, or is it clear? Clear? Now, the second way to explain this theory is tasalsul, meaning the endless chain of creators theory. How does that work? It works in the following way. So I was created, we have me over here, and I'm created by my father, for example, and my father is created by my grandpa. And we keep on going until we reach the first human. And the first human, Adam alayhi salam, he's created by, suppose, Saturn. And then Saturn is created by Venus. And Venus is created by the sun. And so on. We keep on moving. And we get to a point where we don't have wajib al-wujud. We don't have something that always existed. No. We have a possible existent. A possible being. So something here that is a possible being. This cannot be accepted. Why? Because right now we exist. If that theory was correct, we should not exist. Yes. Because the person or the being that's at the tip of the chain, he's waiting for someone to create him. He is also not existing. He's waiting. So if he's waiting and we're all depending on him and he has not been created yet, it means what? It means we should not exist. We should be in non-existence. Does that make sense? Waضحة? Brothers? Ahmed? Sayyid? Yes.
It makes no sense.
It makes no sense?
Yeah.
You mean the theory or my explanation?
The theory.
The theory, Jayyid. Makes no sense. So until now, we've proven how Dawr cannot make sense and how tasalsul also is flawed. So that leaves us with one option. We said, nothing created the universe, that cannot be. Afwan. And so there has to be what? A necessary being that created us. That necessary being is the God that we're talking about. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So now when the Prophet said, قَالَتْ لَهُمْ رَسُولُهُمْ أَفِي اللَّهِ شَكْ فَاطِرِ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. What were they saying? They're saying, look at yourself. Look at this universe. There are skies and there's an earth that was created by God. These skies and this earth, they all come from the possible existence category. Thus, they need someone in the necessary existence category to create them. Without that one being, without that God, nothing can exist. That's where they were leading their people, alayhim salatu wassalam. And you see that the Imam, salamullahi alayhim, they used similar methods to prove the existence of Allah. For example, Imam Ali alayhi salam mentions, this narration is mentioned by him, where he proves the existence of Allah. He says, البعرة تدل على البعير والروثة تدل على الحمير وآثار القدم تدل على المسير فهيكل علوي بهذه اللطافة ومركز سفلي بهذه الكثافة كيف لا يدلان على الصانع الخبير. Translation says, the meaning of the narration is the following. The excrement of a camel and a donkey indicate that a camel and a donkey were present in this certain place. They existed. They went by this place. Forgive us for our words, of course. But the Imam is trying to knock some sense into the people. So that excrement indicates the presence of what? Of the camel or the donkey. Ba'd. The mark of a footstep of a person indicates that a person passed by. So when you see a footstep, what do you say? You say there has to be someone who passed by here, right or wrong. Because you see the effect. And so you connect between the effect and the cause, because every human being knows every effect has a cause. But the Imam says, alayhi salam, how can the presence of a sky over our heads and an earth below our legs not indicate that there is a knowledgeable creator that has created both the sky and the earth? In other words, the Imam used the presence of earth and the sky to indicate that there has to be a Lord, a creator. But Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam, he's asked by an atheist called Abu Shakir al-Daysani, what is the proof that you have a creator? The Imam replies, I have found myself to exist. So the Imam started with his own self. Because there's one thing we're all certain about, and that is we exist. No one can doubt in his existence, unless he just wants to argue. Then yes, he'll doubt. In the days of Socrates, there were people called the Sophista'iyin. These people doubted. They doubted so much that they doubted in their own doubt. Just okay? It was a compound of doubt. Socrates, when Allah bless his soul if he's a mu'min, he tried to knock some sense into the people by teaching them hikmah, wisdom. And that's where we go into philosophy. Nonetheless, the Imam said, I have found myself to exist. That's a haqiqah. We exist without doubt. Then the Imam says, and my existence can only be explained by supposing one of two. Either I created myself or someone else created me. There's only one way to justify my existence. It's either me, I'm the one who created myself, or someone else created me. Realize the Imam did not mention the first possibility we mentioned, which was nothing created us. Why? As if the Imam is telling you, alayhi salam, that's obvious. It's obvious that nothing is nothing. So it can't do anything. It can't create you. For that reason, that could be a reason why he didn't even mention it. Then the Imam said, if I am the one who created myself, then this can only mean one of two things. This is the only way he can explain it. Either I created it when it was existing, or I created it when it was not existing. Is there a third state that the Imam should mention? There isn't. There, because it's either you exist or you don't. There's nothing in between existence and non-existence. Jade. The Imam says, as for creating myself as it was existing, it cannot be. Because I already exist. If you're there, why would you create yourself? You're already there. Right or wrong? For example, if you have a candle in your hand, I tell you, hold a candle in your hand. You tell me why? It's here. Why are you telling me to hold it? It's already in my hand. There's no need to hold it because it's there. Right or wrong? There's no need to get it. Afwan. There's no need to go get the candle. It's in my hand. The Imam is saying, if I exist, why would I create myself? I'm already there. Next, he says, why would I need to create myself when I already exist? And as for creating myself when it was not existing, that cannot be. Because you know that when something does not exist, it is unable to do anything. When Zakaria alayhi salam did not exist, he could do nothing. When I did not exist, I could do nothing because I'm not even there. Right or wrong? The Imam says, based on this, based on what he has told Abu Shakir, I must have a creator, meaning something must have brought me into existence, and that is Allah, the Lord of the worlds, Rabbul Alameen. As for Imam al-Rida, are there any questions on the Imam Sadiq's narration? Wadha? Clear inshallah? As for Imam al-Rida alayhi salam, you'll find waves of narrations by Ahlul Bayt proving the existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but I'm just confining these waves into 3 tonight. The Imam says, a man entered upon Imam al-Rida alayhi salam, and he asked him, O grandson of Allah's messenger, what is the proof that the world has been created? In other words, how do we know that there is a creator for this world? Give him another. The Imam said a very simple phrase, but it's very deep. You were not existing, then you came into existence. Okay, now realize, the Imam is also pointing to a reality we all know about. I mean, even atheists know there was a point where humans did not exist. For that reason, they say there's a great ancestor that both humans and monkeys evolved from, right or wrong. Before evolving, although we don't agree with that, but before evolving, according to what they say, there were no humans. So the Imam is telling him, you know that you did not exist. Now who created you? And you know that you were not the one who created your own self, nor were you created by something like you. So there has to be something different than you, which means there has to be a necessary being, wajib al-wujud, who brings you into existence. I have a question for you. Before we take a break, inshallah. What does the Imam Ali Rida mean when he says, like you? You know that you were not created by something like you. Yes? A human. That's the first thing we understand, right? Is there a deeper understanding? Yes? Possible existence? Yes, sister? Najis? Never mind? Yes, sister? Yeah.
We were probably created by something that has no limits.
Mm-hmm.
So he's probably referring to that humans have limits.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, Allah has limits.
Jayyid. So we understand from the Imam's word, you see how 3 people understood 3 different things, and they're all right. One person understood that the Imam is saying we were not created by humans. That's true. Another person said we were not created by something limited, which is also true. And a third person said we're not created by a possible being, a being from the possible existence category. And that is the widest meaning, if my words are correct, from all 3. The Imam is telling you there has to be something different than you, meaning wajib al-wujud, a necessary being. Jayyid? Inshallah, we'll take a 10-minute break and